Welcome back to the Well Podcast. I am your host, Sharika Himes. Listen, today we are going to dive deep into the intersections of faith, purpose, and everyday life. Today, I am incredibly excited to sit down with a guest whose story is both inspiring and thought-provoking. In our fast-paced, results-driven world, the idea of integrating spirituality into our professional lives can often feel challenging, like two worlds that just don't seem to fit together. But today's conversation is about breaking down that myth. Our guest has walked a remarkable journey from chasing external success and validation to discovering that her career was actually a profound part of her spiritual story. Along the way, she's navigated some setbacks that tested not just her skills, but also her spirit, and ultimately redefined what success truly means. I'm so happy to be here today with my dear friend, Roquita Coleman-Williams. Hey, Ro.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm feeling pretty, honey.
Oh, well, listen, I'm glad you're feeling like how you look.
Pretty and polished.
Give it to the people. These Papa Pink pants, listen, what are they my size? Okay. Wait, what?
No.
Are you sure? I think they are. We'll talk about it later. I am so excited about your story, but before we get into that, tell us a little bit about Roquita.
Well, first off, I am very proud to say I'm the president of Polish Consulting.
I'm very proud to hear you say that too.
After 27 years in corporate America, I reached a aha moment. And like many people, that aha moment was this time of I've reached the top 5% earning category as an income earner. But I did not feel like I was healthy. I didn't feel well, nor did I feel fulfilled. And in that moment, I had to ask myself, what does wellness look like for me? And wellness, quite honestly, did not look like working in a toxic corporate environment.
Yeah, that's so good, so good. Well, listen, you submitted a impeccable story to the devotional journal, and I would like to read it if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
It's about career advancement and spirituality. For a long time, career advancement was solely about hard work, productivity, and delivering results. I was raised on the ideas of meritocracy, that success was directly correlated to how much I achieved and the effort I put in. It was a straightforward formula. If I worked hard enough, I would rise. My focus was on external validation, on climbing the ladder, and proving my worth through accolades and titles. I compartmentalized my life into different areas. There was career, personal life, spirituality. I saw my work as a separate entity, something that existed in a vacuum where spiritual beliefs had little place. But as I advanced in my career, I began to realize that this separation was unsustainable. Every step I took in my professional journey seemed to reflect deeper aspects of my inner life, revealing the interconnectedness of my spiritual and professional paths. When I faced setbacks or challenges, it was not just a test of my skills, it was a test of my spirit. The more I tried to keep these parts of my life separate, the more fragmented I felt. Success began to feel hollow, and no amount of achievement could fill the void that was growing within me. I began to see that my career journey was also a spiritual journey. The struggles, the triumphs, and even the mundane tasks were not just professional milestones. They were reflections of my inner world. They revealed where I placed my trust, how I valued myself, and what I honestly believed about purpose and calling. Spirituality was not a separate box to be checked off on Sundays. It was woven into every decision, every relationship, every challenge I faced at work. I started to understand that my career was an extension of my spiritual life, a way to express my values, my faith, and my purpose. It was not about the titles or the accolades. It was about aligning my work with the deeper calling within me. I realized that the true career advancement is not just about what we achieve externally, but how we grow internally, how we become more of who we are meant to be. The journey is not just about reaching the next level. It is about transforming into someone who embodies their purpose fully. Wow. Just hearing your own words, what does that bring up for you?
It brings up a lot of truth, and it brings up a time when I didn't see myself so clearly. That it brings up a bit of sadness for a version of me that didn't understand the role that spirituality played in who I showed up at work and in how I showed up in my lived life
Yeah.
right? And that at some point, those two things don't just coexist. How to integrate them, how to be one human all the time, how to be one spiritual being all the time.
Oh, one human. What do you mean when you say one human?
1977 is when I'm born.
Okay.
Born into a home that is dependent on entitlements. Household income is about $15,000 a year. In
$15,000 a year.
$15,000 a year.
Okay.
I made more than that a month by the time I was 30. So I came up believing that in order for me to succeed, I had to take and portion myself out. And that impoverished person and the beliefs and history around that woman had to stay home. That woman had to stay home in order for me to grow professionally. And then I reached about 30 and I realized, okay, these guys around me, I work in a very male-dominated industry. These guys around me have done a great job growing up Roquita, the professional.
Yeah.
But as a woman, I felt very stunted. I didn't feel like I knew how to grow myself up emotionally mature. And so I started asking, how do I bring women into my fellowship? How do I bring women who can model for me what growth looks like? And those women were very spiritual. And in the beginning of the relationships, I noticed that while they were very spiritual, it didn't feel dogmatic. It didn't feel like I was being overwhelmed around theology. I wasn't being overwhelmed by these experiences that I grew up with in more of a Kojic or Baptist community. So I realized I don't have to be multiple humans. I can be a singular human, and I can do the work for that whole human to grow in one, as opposed to, hey, spiritual human grows from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. on your own time. Professional human grows between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. on their time.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Now, you shared that you were raised on the ideas of meritocracy and focused on external validation in your career, which you just also spoke to. What were some key moments of achievements in your early career that reinforced this mindset?
Oh gosh, first is graduating at 16, where they're saying, hey, as long as you're really smart and you use those gifts to extract value for others, you matter. And then there's 21, I get a job at UPS as a salesperson. And nothing reinforces external validation like salespeople. If you master communication and build trust and are able to be charismatic, then we will invite you in. We will allow you to share in the wealth. And the more charismatic I was and the more charming I was, then the more income comes up, right? That's that external validation. And the more you understand the needs of the men around you and the successes they want to have, and the more you become a team player, the more they'll look out for you, right? And then, so that reinforced, again, that sense of, hey, this is validating. If I'm on your team and I work hard and I make decisions that are good for your career, then you're going to look out for me. And so that became the map. That became the map for how I operated. And my heart was not a part of that. You know, the state of my heart was not a part of that.
And a lot of your interactions were very transactional, if I remember correctly, when I even first met you.
Wouldn't say a lot. I'd say just about all of them.
Well, I was being gracious.
You were. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. But we're living in a time today where my relationship with truth is solid.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to offend. When your relationship with truth is solid, you put the actual words into
where they need to be,
so that it holds you accountable for how you behave and how you show up.
And just for the record, we are very good friends, and we hold nothing back when we tell each other the truth. True. We tell it in love. So that was really, I was being funny. So now, when did you find out or figure out that success as you had previously defined it now suddenly made you feel hollow?
When I didn't want it anymore. When I stopped wanting it, I took a 1-year hiatus from work. And during that time, I learned, something I joke about now. It's like, well, these guys should have never let me find out you could make money without working. That was the wrong move. So I figured like my skills, talents, and competencies are monetizable, and I don't have to show up at 20 hours a week. Yeah, sign me up for that. So that was the first time. It's like I no longer desired CEO title. I no longer desired president title. What I desired was to do work that was impactful for people and to help people understand that the work you do is a part of the progress you make in life. And that's all that mattered. And then suddenly somebody called up and said, hey, you want to be VP of within a $5 billion organization? And I really I didn't want it. At the time I didn't want it. And I had to take a step back and ask, how can the impacts that I desire to have, how can I take that into this role?
Yeah.
And it was a bit of experiment to see how can I walk in both leadership and in honoring myself as a believer.
Was there ever a time in your life where having this compartmentalization of your spiritual life and your personal life, professional life, that it served you well?
Yes. Yes. I would say my income earnings have always been a reinforcement of that system. However, one of my blind spots was that my income earnings was also a statement of God's grace in my life. And one of our other sisters talked about it earlier. The money in the pocket is sometimes supposed to be in your pocket, and sometimes it's supposed to be in others' pocket. I also learned that that a lot of the grace that I'd been given financially was in order for me to be a tribal leader and to be a connector and to create in my family some of the support systems and some of the foundations that for the children that are not my children, so that they could thrive as well.
You have been in your family what we like to call, and they call it in scripture, a repair of the breach. And that language may resonate to others as a generational curse breaker, because you talked about the deep poverty. And so that has not been your experience. So we know just logically you've already broken that particular curse over your family's life, and you've introduced generational blessings, because I've watched you create legacy wealth for even down to now your grandson Milo. And so I think that's amazing. Is there any other legacy that you now integrating both your professional and personal life, a spiritual life, has now also allowed you to leave or create for your family?
Yeah, I think the legacy of God's gift. God's gift, and walking confidently in that gift. I recognize today areas that I stumbled when I tried to navigate areas that weren't my gift in order to manipulate an outcome.
Okay.
And today I live 100% in that request. I can't say I 100% do it, but my ask of God is always to allow me to walk in my gift, so that I am of service to him. I truly want my life to be a love letter to God. And that is the legacy that I want to leave for my children. And today, I believe that legacy is more valuable than any money or assets or wealth transfer that I can give them. I believe a whole healthy me and the lessons that I can teach and the wisdom that I share and the love that I give and the way in which I show up in the present moment, that has far more value to me today than it did probably 10 years ago, when I thought my only gift to my family would be what I could leave them in terms of assets. That's an outdated belief that I no longer embrace.
Wow. Has your family noticed a change in you?
Oh, considerably.
As evidenced by what?
As evidenced by my husband's text this morning that he's doing a 40-day meditation that he's committed to a 40-day challenge with he and his athletes. There is a piece about me, even in conflict. There is a piece about me, and there is a distinction between non-response and peace. So in the last year, I learned, in the last month, I learned that in the last year, I had a stroke. So at this moment when I was feeling like, maybe this space isn't healthy for me, I felt it from a personality perspective.
Yeah.
Well, there was also it was having a very toxic physical reaction for me that God spared me the severe symptoms of, but it happened. And that caught my attention. And the way in which that caught my attention is that I had started non-responding to things that required a response. And so my prayer became not to not respond, but to always respond in peace. And that is what they notice when I share information, when I state where my boundaries are. There is no upset in that. There is no anger in that. It is shared in peace that these are boundaries. And I didn't grow up thinking you could establish boundaries in peace. You had to establish boundaries because someone violated you. And if there was no violation, if there was no abuse, if there was no manipulation, if there was no harm done, then there was no boundary to be established.
Yeah.
And I'm learning how to establish boundaries in peace so that I can both be an example, but also so I can let my body heal.
That's so good. And I'm so proud of you for
Thank you.
recognizing that. What a high level of self awareness. So, you mentioned that your professional journey began to reflect deeper aspects of your inner life. Can you share an example of a career challenge or triumph that revealed a spiritual truth to you?
Oh gosh. So it was right after our third Total Woman Summit. In my work, I went directly into performance review time, and I was preparing my succession plan. I knew that I was going to do something different in the next year, so I wanted to make sure my successor was ready to move into my role as a VP. And so I'm talking to this person about where their competencies and skills are, and it hits me as I'm going through the assessment that there weren't deficiencies in skills and competencies. The deficiency was in purpose.
Yeah.
And so here I am trying to find language like, how do I tell a young man in business that you're not ready to be promoted because you are not demonstrating faith in your life? Like, how do you use those words to tell someone that you aren't ready to move to the next stage because there is not anything anchoring you spiritually? And it was very difficult. So I used the analogy with them. I said, I want you to consider how you feel during football time. Like, he's a real football fan. They do all of the football us stuff and picking I clearly know nothing about
Yes,
football.
I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna
What's
help
it
you
called?
because I'm trying to make sure I understand what you're trying to say.
When
When he's on his
The magic football, the football fantasy football.
the magic
Thank
football.
you.
What league is this?
30 years working with guys, and
Listen, no,
I
we're-
still
we're
get it
so
all wrong.
shamed. We're
It's
so
a shame.
shamed
They would
right
be.
now.
My mentors would be so disappointed right now. So they do the fantasy football and all that good stuff, right? So he gets so energized. But that's like 4 months a year.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, I said, I want you to think about the energy that you have during football season and how you show up to your employees during football season. I said, what happens after football season? He's like, well, kind of, I don't know, I don't know. I said, and how do you think you show up to your employees doing that? Yeah, I don't know. He's like, I don't know. I said, that's the concern. He's like, what
that's
you
good.
need in your life is something that inspires you 12 months a year in the way football inspires you 5 months a year. And he kind of looked, you could tell that he understood it, but he didn't know where to go to get it.
Yeah.
And that was the moment for me where I felt most challenged as a leader. And it also presented the biggest question for me. How do I, as a leader, then solve for myself what it looked like to walk 100% in spirit, even in my work?
Yeah.
And then how do I translate that into language for other leaders who are either mentoring, supporting, or themselves trying to figure out how do I walk in my work in an enterprise with business results and P&Ls and performance
all
reviews,
the things,
all
right.
the things that it takes to be impactful as a senior leader. How do I do all of that and walk in the spirit?
That's so good. So good. So now we have this sort of newly evolved Roquita with a higher sense of self and awareness of her purpose. So now that your success definition is no longer external, how do you now define success?
Success is seeing other people progress in their lives and being able to be a representative for God's love, even when God is not available or God feels unseen to others. That's the definition.
That's good.
And we've had a lot of moments of late where God has not felt seen by a lot of people.
Yeah. Tell us what you mean by that.
Half the country is divided over election results.
Yeah.
Half the country is celebrating, the other half of the country is sobbing.
In mourning.
In mourning. And every day, I wake up and I watch the news and I see what's going on across the globe. And those things remind me that for a lot of people, God's love is not in sight. And so my sole responsibility today and my sole definition today is to be representative of God's love, even when it doesn't feel in sight for others.
Oh, that's good.
And especially when it doesn't feel in sight for others.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit deeper later on another episode. What did this transformation teach you about yourself?
I'm stubborn. I'm
Is
stubborn.
that a confession of your present day self?
That's still a confession of my present day
Okay.
self. I'm stubborn and I'm extremely prideful. And there are times when I thank God for the grace that's extended to me, but in the back of my head, I'm still saying I did it all alone by myself.
Wow.
And so there's still work to be done to make my heart and my mind match my language. And so sometimes you say fake it. They say fake it till you make it. It's not a fake it till you make it, but it is starting with the discipline of using my tongue in order to allow the rest of me to catch up.
That's good. Well, here's what I can tell you as your friend and as an accountability partner. You're not as selfish as you think you are. You're not as narrow-sighted on yourself as you think you are.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I've seen tremendous growth in you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to applaud that and acknowledge that you are doing that work.
Thank
so
you.
maybe you want to give yourself a little bit more grace.
I received that.
Yes, ma'am. So the transition from focusing on external achievements to internal growth is not always an easy one. Can you talk about some of the challenges you may have faced while you were going through that process?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges is walking away from corporate America. It is tough to walk away from a good job, especially when that good job is producing earnings.
Don't you leave that good job?
Girl,
everybody's on T in America.
Everywhere. It's reinforced
Right.
everywhere. And, if you're a top 5% income earner, you most certainly don't leave that job unless,
Right.
Unless somebody's offering you a severance, they're kicking you out the door. Right. So my decision to volunteer to opt out of that environment, that was a tough one. Because I was looking for God to say very clearly, hey, love yourself enough to walk into my next steps for you and not your own. The second thing that was a really big challenge is supporting my family in those decisions. When you make what looks like sudden changes, it can alarm the people around you. And they're wondering like, what's happening? And so there is some care that has to go into supporting their reaction and supporting how your decisions and your way of being impacts others, especially when you're walking through life with someone. I'm married and have 2 children and a grandson. So I have people walking through life with me. So I have to be mindful of how my spiritual growth might be appearing to them as very sudden with these big decisions and these big feelings. And I have to be careful in how I manage their feelings and how it impacts them.
That's so good. What advice can you give to a leader who is trying to connect both their professional life and their professional ambition with their faith? And how will it serve them? What advice can you give them about how can they start making that? And then what can you tell them they can look forward to when they
get you an executive coach who has values aligned with your own?
Yeah.
So many of us wait too late to get executive coaches.
I agree.
We want to have the impact. And there's this belief that if I get to this level, I should know everything I need to know to operate in that level. That's even without faith.
Right.
That's just in competencies and skills. And for women, we really believe that. If you make it to the executive level, we believe that we should know everything we need to know to fully operate in that, to full proficiency and mastery, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just tomfoolery.
Right.
It's tomfoolery. So not only are you not supposed to know everything, you're only supposed to know the resources to get it, right? And how to access that. And that means having a coach. But specifically for believers, that means having a coach whose values are aligned with your own, whatever that belief system is. It's having someone that understands the language, that understands the challenges, and can be a true accountability partner for you. When you think about, Michael Jordan or any other exceptional person, they all have coaches that give them immediate feedback.
Right.
So how would one believe that you would be truly impactful in anything in life and master anything in life without someone there to give you immediate feedback? It can't happen.
Yeah.
So getting an executive coach, that's very important. Having a fellowship with people who you walk through life with, that understand and that you can call on, as I call it, your advisory board. That's extremely important.
What do you mean when you say walk through life? I say this to people.
Yeah.
We do life together. That's how I use it. And I find that people often don't even know what that means because they haven't had the benefit of having that experience. So I'd like for you to give life to that language.
Walking through life is those people who are the top 5 people you spend the majority of your time with.
Okay.
The people who you depend on for comfort, for care, for love, for trust. Those people you depend on as mirrors to yourself, right? The people that you look at and say, if this human is behaving this way, perhaps, say birds of a feather, this human is behaving this way, it is a reflection on who I am.
Right.
So that is walking through life when you have that type of influence on another person and they have that type of influence on you.
That is so good. So as you were making this shift, how did the people at work experience you differently?
I don't know that they did. I would have check-ins, and they experienced. In fact, after I left the organization, there were some people that we were in different timing in life, and you can't call it friendship because friendship requires proximity, friendship requires timing, and then mutual agreement, right? And so we had mutual agreement, but we didn't have proximity and same timing in life. So we developed very good care for one another. And so I called them up and I said, hey, I've now learned these things. Like I was in a bit of a chaotic state. Here is how the organization's architecture and some of the organizational decisions impact me on the inside. How did that show up in work? And they were like, you were cool as a cucumber. There was like no response. You seemed to be unmoved by it. And initially I took that as a compliment. But then I was talking to my 12-year-old one day, and I was asking him about our toxic traits. Like, what do you see as dad's toxic trait? What do you see as mom's toxic trait? And he says, mom doesn't care about anything. Like everything is just like, okay. And I thought, gosh, that's not, this, you're showing up as cool as a cucumber. It's also, it lacks humanity.
Yeah, and empathy.
It lacks humanity and empathy. And it goes back to that statement I made earlier. A peaceful response is not the same as a non-response.
Yeah.
And so I was non-responding to things that were of high emotion, of high stakes, that had a whole lot of urgency to others. But my programming is to have one or two emotional ranges at work.
Which came from trauma, right?
It comes from trauma. It comes from validation externally. It comes from an environment that says, oh my God, you're the person for this job because your emotional intelligence is high and you don't cause drama. That's saying, don't show up about your emotion. There is no room for it, and we're going to reward you with title and power in exchange for you not showing up with a bunch of emotion. So all around us as women, especially. we receive that programming, and the programming becomes a part of who we are. So, there is no real compartmentalizing. I'm showing up as a non-responder in work, and at home, I'm showing up as a non-responder.
Wow.
So I think that was mostly a very powerful awareness for me.
Okay. That's good. What lessons do you think professionals like yourself can take away from aligning their work with their purpose?
The biggest lesson is to do it sooner than later. Do it sooner than later. Do not believe that you have time to become a whole person. Start working on that. I wish that I could have started working on that in my 30s.
Yeah.
If I could have known what the outcome of obedience would be in my life, gosh, there was just so much that I would do different. There are people who I know that I influenced a great deal that would have had a better experience of me had I known to start working on that, integrating that spiritual side of myself sooner.
What do you mean by obedience? And obedience to who?
And obedience to God.
I like to clarify things.
Yeah, an obedience to God. I was a bit of a wanderer for a couple years. My experience with organized religion was not favorable, but I did seek and yearn, and I'm a learner.
Yes,
and
you
so
are.
I sought opportunities to deepen my spiritual relationship through yoga. I sought opportunities to deepen my relationship through Buddhism. I studied Hinduism. And so I studied a lot of different spaces and pulled things from each one that really help in now how I curate a whole life for myself and a whole spiritual practice and rituals around that. And I agree with some of the foundations of those rituals. But at the end of the day, yoga itself doesn't tell me what I'm supposed to be obedient to. It teaches you to quiet and listen, but listen for what? And listen to whom? And so for that, I needed to go to the gospel. I needed to understand the Bible. And so the last year, I've read the Bible from front to back in order to align these other practices and rituals I have with what am I supposed to be listening to? I'm quiet. I've meditated for 20 years and I know how to be quiet. but then what am I hearing? What am I listening to? And what am I being obedient to?
That's so good. So now I need you to tell those same professionals 3 practical steps they can take today to start that process or that journey. You can look into your camera and tell them.
The first is to become a radical listener. A radical listener to the top 5 people who are in life with you, who are doing life with you, asking them how they're experiencing you and fully being open and transparent and receiving that because they see you every day.
Yeah.
The second is to go to the Gospels. Start your own living journey, your own understanding, regardless to what your past experiences have. Just start opening the book and reading it and asking for guidance and discernment as to what it means for you. And then the third is definitely assemble a board of advisors. People who you can trust, people who can help elevate you, and people who will ultimately hold you accountable and with whom you can hold accountable.
That's so good. Well, listen, tell me, is there anything else that you'd like to share before I have you give closing remarks?
That's it. We've covered so much.
We have covered so much.
We've unpacked so much. The biggest thing I say is, if you're on social media, then connect with me. It's not hard to find a Roquita. My mom made sure of that.
Mm-hmm. Spell it for them.
Roquita. Roquita.
And for those who like to call her Roquita, it is not. It is Roquita. It is just like it looks. It is Roquita Coleman-Williams. She is everywhere. So as we close, I'd like for you to look into your camera, and I'd like you to speak first to the professional who is struggling. Specifically, all of their validation is in their success, and they are empty. Yeah. And they don't even know where to start. That's just where they at. That's you. That's the old you who's not looking to start integrating. I want you to speak to the uninvolved version of Roquita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not alone. I know that it feels like you're by yourself. I know that it feels like you are either doing better, or you're doing worse than others. But the reality of it is that you are exactly where God wants you to be. Mm-hmm. And so the best thing that you can do for yourself today is to stop and listen. Slow everything down and take a fellowship. I would highly recommend taking time to fast, taking time to stop hearing voices, to tune out the iPhones, to tune out the stuff that we watch on television, to in some cases even allow silence around the relationships that you're walking through life in. Give yourself room to just hear God. Take that time.
And now I want you to speak to the person who is not thinking about reconciling their lives. They know they're going to work fragmented every day. They are on the chase, and they have every trinket that the world says is success.
You'll get there. You'll know the moment when all of those things don't matter. Give me a call.
Well, Roquita, listen, it is always a pleasure. I appreciate you. And thank you for letting us peek inside your journey so that we too may also have some guidance for our own growth.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So wellness is a lifestyle. And from your perspective, we talked about that from a career perspective. Are you more well now?
I am becoming more well. I feel better. I sound better. And I'm thinking these days I'm looking a little better.
Yeah, you're looking cute and whatnot.
My style has certainly elevated a bit. So all of it comes together. Uh-huh. That process doesn't mean that you deteriorate into a little old woman with raggedy clothes. That's not what happens. No. In fact, I think as you become more obedient, you do everything about you becomes more polished and more elevated.
Because this glow up is real. Okay, she was always amazing.
I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. It's always a pleasure, sis. I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Well Podcast. We will see you next time. But in the meantime, keep practicing wellness as a lifestyle.